while you were in Russia, there were some interesting things going on. One of them was a so-called stated strategy change by the United States, where now there's a de-emphasis on Ukraine taking back territory, maybe an epiphany or simply just a pathetic admission of defeat. But nonetheless, as this was happening, you were everywhere. It seemed like in Russia. You were in Russia. You were in New Russia. The Donbass territories have been newly admitted. Could you talk about what you learned about this war, about the conflict through your trip to Russia, and how it kind of jives or maybe doesn't jive with what we are hearing about it from the collective West, the media, the military-industrial complex, etc.?
Sure. Look, this trip was a follow-on to the visit that I had in May, which was a 26-day, 12-city tour of Russia. And one of the, I guess the purposes of that trip was for me to reintroduce myself to Russia, or have Russia reintroduced to me, because I hadn't been in that region since the Cold War. I mean, I last set foot in Soviet territory in 1991, when it was still the Soviet Union. And so here we are now, 2023, and I'm returning. And I'm aware, I'm a student of Russia. I study its history, I study its culture, but book knowledge and seeing it, two totally different things. So I went there, and I had this wonderful experience where I captured, the essence of Russian. I've been trying to bring it back, encapsulate it, and try and educate an American audience about the reality of Russia. So this trip had two purposes. One, if you're going to talk about Russia and you ain't talking about snow, then you ain't talking about Russia. So I need to see this new Russia in wintertime. And it's not just about the cold and the snow. It's about two of the most important times culturally for Russia. One is New Year's. We celebrate Christmas on December 25th here in the West, and it's a big holiday with the Christmas tree and the gifts and all that stuff. Well, the Russians don't celebrate December 25th as Christmas. That's us. The Orthodox celebrated it, and I think this year they celebrated on the 7th of January. And it's a different thing. Christmas for them is a very religious thing. It's about the Mass. It's about Jesus being born. It's about, it's very religious, and the rise of the Orthodox faith in Russia. So I got to see New Year's, which is their Christmas. That's their family time. That's where they give the gifts. And to see Moscow lit up, see St. Petersburg lit up for New Year's and for their Orthodox Christmas is just an amazing thing. And to see the Russian people as they share this experience with themselves, with their neighbors, as a nation. This was really a cultural thing for me. I got to go to St. Petersburg on Christmas Day and go to the ballet, one of their major theaters there, and see the Nutcracker, Peter Tchaikovsky's Christmas ballet, see it performed live in St. Petersburg on Christmas Day. Now, why that's important? Because in 1892, Tchaikovsky premiered the Nutcracker in St. Petersburg on Christmas Day. I mean, this wasn't just sort of cool for me, but it touched. You see how cultural the Russians are. I mean, they love this stuff. This is them. This defines them. This is their music, their dance, their composer. This is their soul. This is their essence. And you see that. I got to go to the big church in Moscow on Christmas Eve and see the mass that was hosted by Kirill, the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox. He's the damn Pope of Russia. All right. This is big deal. And to see him come in and see the pageantry and see how the Russians, how seriously they take faith today in Russia. So that was the first part of it, was completing the task, I guess, connecting more dots about what the Russian soul is, what Russia is, the importance of orthodoxy to Russia, and to see the Russian people come alive, and to see this at a time when Russia's in conflict with Ukraine, but and the collective West, Russia's under sanctions, and to see how unbowed and undefeated Russia is as a nation, as a people, was also important. There was no celebrations in the street about defeating Ukraine and all this. There was steely-eyed determination that they are going to see this through. I went to the VDNH. It's a economic exhibition, and I guess in April, I might be getting this wrong, in October, November, they opened up this exhibition where every major district in Russia got a stage, and they basically were selling themselves, saying this is what we do economically, and they built this huge thing, and you can go in there and you walk through, and man, for a nation that's under sanctions, they got a lot of economic stuff going on. I mean, it's thriving. It's all modern. It's all AI driven. Very impressive. So you see that. You see this thriving economy. You see this vibrant society. You see this deeply cultural people, and it had to be experienced. And I'm so glad that my host, Alexander Zuryanov, gave that opportunity, not just for me, but for my daughter. I was able to bring Patricia back in May. I brought Victoria. I have twin daughters. Victoria got to see Russia in May. Patricia got to see it in December. But then there was part two. And this is the part that I wanted to be, because when I was there last time in May, I didn't go to the new territories. There was a number of reasons for that. One, it was dangerous, and they just weren't going to let me go there. And two, it was still, I guess, a little too raw, et cetera. But I came back in May, and I started talking. I talked to you. I talked to other people, and I'm supposed to be thick-skinned and everything, but I always hear what people say. And some of the criticism was, hey, you're talking an awful lot about what's going on the front, and about what's going on in Donetsk and Lugansk and Zaporizhia and Kherson, but you've never been there. I mean, you're sort of like a long distance sniper, aren't you? A little armchair warrior, sitting back and just, talking about things that people are calling you an expert, but you've never been there. And I'm like, I mean, that hit home. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I haven't been there. And if I'm going to talk about it, maybe I should go there. Maybe I should see it firsthand. So I wanted to go there, and I made it a point to want to go. Now, here's the thing. Just because Scott wants to go someplace doesn't mean Scott gets to go someplace, because, it is dangerous. There is a war going on. And the Russians were like, we don't want you to go there. We sort of like you. We'd like you to continue doing what you're doing. We don't know what you're doing or why you're doing it, but we like what you're doing. And if you go there, you might die. And that's not going to be a good day. So no, you don't get to go. And so there was an interesting give and take there as I was trying to make my way to the new territories, where the Russian government was saying that ain't going to happen. But there were people that understood why it was important for me to go there. And we found the way to make it happen. And it was done, I guess we'll call it, through the indirect approach. We started my trip to the new territories in Grozny, in Chechnya. Why? Well, there's a couple reasons why. One, if you want to talk about Russia, this is a conflict of, about Russia. And what defines Russia? How do you define Russia? Most people say, well, when you say Russia, you're thinking blonde hair, blue-eyed Slav, Russians. Well, the Chechens are Russians. They consider themselves Russians. They're part of the Russian Federation. They're part of the family of nations that makes up the Russian Federation. The Chechens, Muslims, separate ethnic identity, language, religion, but they're Russian. And they're fanatically Russian. They are supplying troops to the fight. Some of the senior military leaders, Abdi Alduanov is in the Lugansk area. He's a general. He's now at the General Staff College, getting taking the lessons he learned from the conflict and capturing it so it can be better transmitted to other troops. So I went to Chechnya, and I had to see, because again, we talk about conflict resolution. How does this war end? Are the Russians ever going to be able to repair relationships with the Ukrainians? And today people say, no, no, can't do it. Too much blood. Well, I'll tell you what, if you think there was too much blood in Ukraine, go to Chechnya and understand there were two wars fought between the Chechens and the Russians in the 1990s and in the early 2000s. Chechnya is a very small country, 1.5 million people. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives. and this got bloody. This got ridiculous. This was, the in America, we talk about the Hatfields and the McCoys, those clans in the Tennessee, Kentucky area, where, you kill a Hatfield kills a McCoy, then the McCoy has to kill a Hatfield, and the feud went on for decades. Well, the Chechens are like that, blood feud, but they take it to an extreme level. And the Chechens were starting to consume themselves in this conflict. And there were Chechens who fought against the Russians, got their freedom. People, I don't think a lot of people realize that the Chechens actually became independent, the Ichkeria Republic. They fought for their independence and they got their independence against the Russians in the 1990s. But then the United States started infiltrating Wahhabists, foreign fighters with this, perverse Saudi Arabian, fanatic Islam coming in there. And the Chechens aren't Wahhabists. They're Sunni Sufists. I learned that. Why? Because in this tour, I was taken to the Shali Mosque that was built as to be the heart of Islam in Chechnya. This is where the Sunni faith, the Sufist theocracies were based, where they lived, where they breathed. I was the Grand Mufti, the head Islamic dude, took me around and explained everything to me, talked to me about religion, the importance of religion in the Chechen people and the Chechen nation. This is Islam in a nation, a republic that calls itself Russian. Russians and Chechens live side by side in peace and harmony today. A miracle has taken place. They took me to the museum of Ahmed Kadyrov. Ahmed Kadyrov was the Grand Mufti of the Ichkeria Republic. He fought against the Russians. He's the head Islamic guy in Chechnya. And when the second Chechen conflict starts up, he's against the Russians. He's organizing it. But then he started to see the perversion of Islam that was taking place with the Wahhabists coming in. And he said, this is going to destroy us. It's going to cause Chechens to turn on Chechens, and we'll get this blood feud going, and it will never end, and we're all going to die. And we need to bring this to an end. Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, is the president, and he's looking at the fight, and he said, we can't allow the United States, the CIA, to rip Chechnya away from us, but we need this to end too. We need this war to end. So Putin and Ahmed Kadyrov got together, and they came up with a peace formula. It was a formula that was premised on respect, Russian respect of the Chechens, respect of their autonomy, respect of their religion, respect of their traditions, their values, their customs. In exchange for this respect, the Chechens, said, we can forgive everything that's happened. We're going to move on a pathway to peace. Grozny in 2002 looked like Stalingrad, totally flattened. Grozny today, modern city. I have to tell you, when you drive into Grozny at night for the first time, if you haven't experienced it, you think you're driving into Las Vegas because of the lights. The city is alive, high-rise lights, colored lights, beautiful city, beautiful roads, and a people at peace, a people at peace. The Chechen miracle has to be experienced if you're going to understand what's going to happen with Ukraine, because that's how the Russians operate. Forget all this Western propaganda. The Russians only want to do this, that, and that. The Russians want peace. The Russians want people to live in peace. And the Russians will, at some point in time, repair relations with Ukrainians or the Ukrainians or whatever's left. And once they do that, people will thrive, people will prosper. That's the Chechen miracle. The other thing we had to do is shake the ship a little bit. And here we were given a big assist by Ramzan Kadyrov. He is the head of the Chechen Republic. By law, senior officials in the Russian Federation are not allowed to meet with foreigners without 2 weeks advance notice. Well, We didn't have 2 weeks advance notice. I just showed up in Chechnya. And I didn't know I was going to get a meeting with Ramzan Kadyrov, but suddenly the word came in, you're meeting with Ramzan Kadyrov. Okay, cool. I mean, come on, man. He's the head of the Chechen Republic. It's sort of a big deal to have a meaningful dialogue. I crack up. There's people like, you met with a terrorist leader. You met with a man under sanctions. Who the hell are you to meet with this guy? I'm like, well, I just explained to you guys the importance of the Chechen miracle. And Ramzan Kadyrov is the living embodiment of the Chechen miracle today. You can say what you want. I know there's people out there. Is the Chechen policy towards homosexuals everything America would like it to be? Nope. Because they don't have a policy towards homosexuals. They don't tolerate it. Now, is this an American value? No, it's not. It's a Chechen value. And one of the reasons why there's peace in Chechnya today is because Russia said, we will respect your faith. We will respect your culture, your traditions. And homosexuality is not a Chechen tradition. And, it is what it is. They don't do LGBTQ. That's not part of their society. As an American, I'm like, well, in America, we couldn't tolerate this, but it's not America. It's Chechnya. It's their place. And you have to see it. You have to live it. You have to breathe it. You have to be there to understand it. To go to a restaurant in a village that was the center of the Russian-Chechen conflict, where hundreds of Russians were killed, thousands of Chechens were killed, and to go there and sit down and watch families come together in peace and harmony. You have to understand that only happens because the Chechen cultural values were respected by the Russians. Peace has broken out all over. It's not, I guess, the way that Americans would want to design it, but then we wouldn't have peace. American doesn't bring peace. We bring conflict. We tear societies apart. We set people off against each other. What's happening in Chechnya today is peace. It's peace. And I was thrilled to have the opportunity to sit down and talk to substantive dialogue with the man who is the head of the Chechen Republic, the man who plays an important part in what's going on. Now, Ramzan Kadyrov is sort of a legendary character. He's sort of a man's man, like all the Chechens are. I mean, say what you want about the Chechens, they got this manly thing going on. So when I get out of the car and I'm walking up to the villa in the presidential palace where we're going to have the lunch, there's this guy in the distance. I wear glasses and my prescription's off a little bit, so it's a little blurry. But all I see is this giant white wolf. I mean, I'm talking about a giant white wolf. If you watch Game of Thrones, the big wolf that they kill on season 1. I forget what they call it. It was not a werewolf, but it was some sort of big giant wolf. This thing is that big, and there's this guy feeding it. Jumping up, the wolf's jumping up, and he's feeding it, and he's petting it, and all of a sudden, there's a couple Chechen warriors holding the wolf back, and I'm like, damn it, they sucked me in here. They're going to feed me to a wolf. So I walk up there, and it's Ramzan Kadyrov playing with his pet wolf. Little intimidating, you got to be honest. And then you walk in, and gracious host. We have a table set up, and we have this long conversation, and it's substantive. We're talking about peace in the region. We're talking about his father, the role his father played, what the Chechen policy is towards Ukraine, towards supporting Russia. My daughter, who is a specialist in Southern Caucasus affairs, was able to talk to him about a pathway to peace in Georgia. Good stuff. And then halfway through, and I got to tell you, as we drove in through Grozny, a normal city street, cars, driving around. Nothing. So we're sitting there eating about an hour in. He goes, hey, would you like to say hi to the troops? I'm like, all right. Now, when I was there in May, they took me to the presidential barracks, and there were 2,000 Chechen presidential guards out there, and I got to go in and meet them. I didn't address them, but I shook the hands of the battalion commanders, sort of walked, like inspected the troops. It was a cool experience. So I'm like, yeah, hell, why not? I'll do that. He goes, all right. We go out the back door, and as soon as the door opens up, I go, there's something wrong here, because there's nothing but soldiers all over the place. And it's a limited view. You come out and you've got some trees and stuff, but all I can see is soldiers. I'm like, okay, I guess this is where I meet the troops. Nope, we keep walking. We make the turn, and now you get into the rolling grounds of the palace, covered with soldiers. Thousands of them, 25,000 of them to be exact. Somehow, while we were eating lunch, he pushed the magic button and the garrison of Grozny mobilized, and they literally walked through the streets of Grozny. Imagine being a citizen of Grozny and you're trying to drive to work, and all of a sudden 25,000 soldiers just start converging on the presidential palace, and they are armed to the teeth. They are carrying RPGs, machine guns. They got it all. And they come in and they're there. And we go there and they part like Moses parting the Red Sea. And we walk through them. And it's like, I'm just sitting there going, this is so unreal. I mean, I'm like pinching myself. Why is this happening? This is, you can't even explain what's going through my mind, because it was just like crazy. And then we get up there to the presidential palace area, and you look out, and it's literally a sea of soldiers. A sea. They're everywhere. And Ramzan Kadyrov gives a speech. And I'm like, okay, cool. He's addressing the troops. And then he turns around and he goes, and now I'm inviting Scott Ritter to come up and speak to you. And I'm going, no, you're not. I don't know what to say. I don't know what and my friend Alexander Zuryanov, his fiance, he proposed to her on New Year's Eve. That's another reason why New Year's Eve was cool. I was there when he proposed to her. She said yes. But now we're getting ready to ruin their relationship, because they say she's going to be my translator. And so we're walking up the stage, and she's like saying, her mouth is saying, just speak in short sentences. But her eyes are saying, please don't make me do this. Please don't make me do this. And I'm looking at her and I'm going, I like Alexander. He's a good friend of mine, and I want them to have a great relationship. I'm not going to ruin this. So I'm stepping on the microphone and I go, I'm a Marine. Go big or go home, baby. So I walk up to that microphone and I just start speaking Russian. And I have no clue what I'm going to say. I just start speaking Russian. And next thing I know, I put together a semi-coherent speech. And I addressed 25,000 heavily armed Chechens in the middle of Grozny. It was the craziest thing in my life. But by having that meeting in this event, we put a marker on the table that said, we will not be denied.
Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.